In this video, we're going to keep working on building our custom GPT for estimating construction costs. And if you followed us so far, we've already made a couple videos. The first one talking about the goals and the purpose and the main components. And the second video really showing you a test drive of our first version of the estimator. Now in this video, we're going to really dive deeper on the instructions, which in a lot of ways, this actually might be one of the more let's say boring videos, but I also think it's one of the most valuable videos that we're going to put together because we're really going to break down how to make custom GPTs and how to make the instructions for custom GPTs. Now, when you go to make a custom GPT in OpenAI, in ChatGPT, you're going to end up on this page first by clicking on GPTs in the left sidebar. And then on the top right, you're going to find this create button. When you click on it, you end up on this page. And this is where you can make your own custom GPT. You can make it about anything you want when you're trying to train it to do a more specific task or operate on a more specific set of guidelines. And this could be anything. It could be content creation. It could be more specific on content creation, like blog posts or Facebook posts. It could be operations. You can build your own coach in here. You can build your own executive assistant in here for the most part. You can even do personal stuff. Like I have one for my health. I have one for helping me raise my daughter. So you can really make it however you want and for whatever you want. And it's such a cheat code. This is absolutely something you should learn how to do, or at least start playing with. Now, there's a couple ways to start building out this custom GPT. And by the way, before I go too deep, I'm not an expert, but I learn from a lot of experts, and I'm just trying to, along this journey of building the estimator, I'm trying to teach you things that I've learned because, again, it's incredibly helpful. It's the highest leverage thing you can do today with technology or just with any tool. So in this page, you can really build this custom GPT in a couple ways. You can go to this create part where you see right now. It's basically asking you, what would you like to make? And you can have a dialogue back and forth with ChatGPT to help you make this custom GPT. Now, if you want to, and this is what the experts would actually recommend for you, is you go to the configure section and you can custom prompt everything here between the name, the description, the instructions, the conversation starters, etc. Now, I definitely agree from what I've learned that this is the best place to build your custom GPTs. Now, there is a difference with what we're doing with this estimator. The estimator is such a complex tool that we're building. And if I was building something simple, I would probably make this video very differently. But because we're building something so complex, we actually, when I build this out, I'm using a combination of both. I'm custom making and prompting the instructions, but I'm also using the create function to have a dialogue with the GPT because essentially here's a key tip and a key point. You only have a certain amount of what they call tokens. And with this model, with this GPT, with ChatGPT, you have 8,000 tokens. Now with other LLMs, which are large language models, so that's things like Claude, Grok, Gemini, those all have different context windows or different amount of tokens that you can use in the instructions. It also has different context windows in your knowledge base because what you see down here is a knowledge base where you can upload files and documents that it can pull from so that it knows the information that you're trying to use and utilize when you're trying to create outputs with this custom GPT. So even all these different LLMs have different essentially context windows. And that's what it's called, context windows, of really just how many characters and how much information it can pull from. So that is maybe something a lot of people don't understand is that it's not unlimited, not yet at least. Maybe one day it will be. And there's other ways you can get more towards an unlimited type of knowledge set or information that it can pull from. And that's through like vector files and RAG systems, which requires coding and a little bit more technological background. For us, with no code and with just this one tool, we have a limited amount of information we can use, which makes it much more difficult, which is why I use a combination of create and configure to make these GPTs, or make the Estimator GPT, because I want to make sure that we are using the most important information in the instructions. Now, this video today is going to be all about instructions, like I said. So I just wanted to show you the basics and where you would be putting the instructions into this GPT. In the next video, we're actually going to start creating a GPT together on this video, on these recordings. But today, let's talk about instructions. So the next thing I wanted to show you is our custom GPT called the GPT Architect. Now, this is a custom GPT that helps us build instructions for other custom GPTs. Now, that sounds crazy. And the first time I saw that experts in this field do this, I thought it was overkill and maybe a little bit crazy too. And I was like, oh, these AI people are really just going to the next level and just doing unnecessary stuff. But the more I've learned about AI and LLMs, is the more I've realized that this is incredibly important. And if you follow these experts, you'll also see that they have custom GPTs that help them create prompts. And this is one of the main reasons why, and this is where it clicked for me. There's a few reasons why, but this is really the main reason. AI, these LLMs, these large language models, they are still not perfect. And there's a long way for it to go to be perfect. And I know that's maybe shattering to a lot of people's perspective on AI, but it's 100% true. And the more you use AI or ChatGPT or Claude or any of these, you will realize that it makes mistakes all the time and it will hallucinate all the time. So for example, in that create function, when you're making a custom GPT and you ask it to do things, it might not prompt it perfectly in the instructions to do it the way that you need it to do it, or say it in the right way to make it happen. Now, you can still have the dialogue back and forth and, essentially work and whittle away at it to make sure the instructions are proper, even through that create function. But it's a lot more efficient to have a GPT architect that you've trained to be an architect on making instructions for GPTs, and then just work with this custom GPT to get the instructions, copy and paste it into your custom GPTs. So this is a huge tip and hack that I've learned that I'd like to teach to you. If you expect to make custom GPTs for yourself in the future, you should definitely create one of these. And one of the things I'm going to give away in this video is actually the instruction set for this GPT Architect. And then also in this giveaway is the GPT Architect Masterclass that goes through 10 main points that you need to be aware of, that you need to learn when you're creating instructions for custom GPTs, regardless of what the custom GPT is going to be. So I'll give you a quick sneak peek into this. This is what you would download when you go to that giveaway in the video description. All you're going to have to do is copy and paste this into the instruction set, like I said, and then you can actually learn more about how to make instructions for custom GPTs, all here with these 10 main points. So it's incredibly useful for you, especially if you're interested in making custom GPTs for yourself, especially if you're new to it. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the instruction set that we've built for this Estimator GPT. And I know that the first 10 minutes or so of this video has all been about custom GPTs and creating them in instruction sets and how to create those. And it might be slightly off the topic of specifically building an Estimator GPT, but perhaps not really, because you have to know these basics if you want to build your own custom GPT for estimating construction costs. And even if you end up using just hours and you join the Rehabber's Playbook, you will need to know how these things work anyway, just so you know how to prompt things, how these things function, etc. And then lastly, if you want to make custom GPTs for yourself for any other purpose, it's incredibly valuable to know the basics here. So we'll dive deeper into the Estimator GPT now. And before I go too far on this, I just want you to know, again, we're just going to be looking at an instruction set today. So I think this is very important. If you're a nerd like me, this is going to be more entertaining for you, but we're not going to be playing around with the custom GPT today. That's going to be the next video and the video after that when we really put our final model together. So I don't want you to be expecting that as we get deeper in this video. But let's go through some of these instructions. And before I go into it also, I want to preface this with an analogy that I'm going to be working with throughout the rest of the video, which is building a custom GPT is a lot like building a house, which makes me feel a lot more at home as a builder, because you do have to understand how to build the foundation of these GPTs, how to build the framework, then how to build the mechanical systems and how it functions, and how to finish the house out with fixtures and finishes. And it's really a lot like that when you're building custom GPTs. And as we go through some of these instruction sets, you will see where this analogy really comes into play. And I'm going to be trying to highlight it as well. Now, last thing before we go in, I promise we're going in right now, but if you've followed our videos before, we have 2 other videos, and we've shown you our instruction set a couple times, and it's very vast, and it's unorganized, and it's all over the place, which is another example of how building out a custom GPT like the GPT Architect to help you format and organize these instructions is incredibly important. Because if you go back to those videos and you see our instruction set and you compare it to what you're looking at now, this is much more clear, a lot easier to understand, a lot easier to edit and change in the future as well. Now, let's go through it. Number 1 is really what we're going to be talking about when we compare it to building a house, when we're talking about building foundations. You always start building custom GPTs with the foundation. And the foundation of your custom GPT is, what is the goal? Okay, with what input creates what output. So that's all spelled out here underneath this part of the instruction set. You'll even see the very first sentence is, this GPT transforms user prompts into detailed estimates using TRP's standardized system. Okay, and then the rest of this section is really giving all the main components so it knows what it's using to create those outputs. So it shows the logic stack. It shows the system components, which is perhaps one of the most important parts of this opening section as well, showing that we're using a handful of different documents to help with the formatting, to help with the pricing, to help with the clarifying questions, with the output in general, etc. We even talk about the guardrails early on as well. So these are all overarching things that help us teach the GPT the main goal of what we're trying to accomplish here. So that's all in section 1, and that's the foundation. Number 2 is like framing the house. Okay, so this is where we provide the framework, or in another sense, or another way to put it, is the format. So this is where we're being very clear on how the estimate needs to be formatted. For us, it's in table only format, and you can see that in the first sentence here. You'll also see that we make it very clear what construction cost categories to work with, and we point it towards a document that we're going to be uploading in the knowledge base that's going to house and show all the construction cost categories that we use, and we make it very clear not to deviate from these categories unless we have a user prompt that explicitly wants a new category. And then we even give it examples of the formats. The detailed estimate format, we upload that, and that's going to be in the knowledge base as well. And then a summary estimate format, because we actually are allowing this GPT to give us 2 different types of formats. One is a detailed estimate that has a category, line item, quantity, rate, and cost, and it has a lot more line items and groupings. And then the summary estimate is just a category, scope of work, and cost. So if you want a more high-level view of your estimate, you can always prompt it to give you a summary estimate as well. So again, that's the framing. That's the framework or the format of this GPT. Then we start going into what I would like to refer to as the mechanical systems. So how it's actually functioning. So like you're putting electrical, plumbing, and HVAC into a house, you're making that house function properly, right? Making it work, making all those systems work together. That's going to be section 3 and 4 here, where we have the estimate types and workflow, which we're showing it that we're going to be working from a rough estimate to a preliminary estimate to a final estimate, all by asking clarifying questions and making sure we have all the detail to make the right estimate. And then section 4 are using project types and estimate templates. So again, how this is functioning, where it's starting, what information it's using, and how it's using that information to create these estimates. So in our GPT, everything starts with these templates in these project types. So the best way to think of it is if you prompt this GPT with a cosmetic renovation scope of work, then it's starting with that cosmetic renovation template with the line items that it should be expecting, the costs and the scopes of work that it should be expecting, and then it's working from there. Instead of working from a big, vague, overarching template for all these different types of projects, it's actually honing in on these specific types of projects and starting with those standard line items, scope of work, costs, etc. Same with like a new construction. If you prompt it to say, I want to estimate for a new construction house, it's going to start with a new construction template, all the line items and the scope of work that it should be expecting, and then it's going to start tweaking from there. So that's how we're going to be able to make this GPT work. And again, this is a mechanical system, and you've probably seen in the other videos some of this at play. So it's very important to watch all these videos if you're really interested in making this work for yourself, or if you're interested in using ours so you know that it works properly. Because again, just a quick side note, this is something where if you were just using a random GPT to estimate costs, how do you know that it works properly? What costs is it using? What format is it going to build it in? This is how we're building it so you can feel comfortable potentially using our GPT if you're not building it out for yourself. Now we're kind of getting into the fixtures and finishes part of building this GPT or building a house, right? I'm kind of still using that analogy. But the clarifying questions are how we're going to be finishing off the estimate. So once you start building, once you prompt it, once a user prompts the GPT and it builds out the first estimate, we're going to be having clarifying questions from the GPT to the user so that it's providing all the important information that it needs. So the user is providing all that information to the GPT for it to make the most accurate estimate possible. So we have a whole protocol on clarifying questions. Again, a lot of this stuff we've talked about in the past. I'm just showing you how we reorganized it with the GPT Architect and with kind of how we're thinking of it as building a house as well. Which also, by the way, the GPT Architect use that analogy to teach me how to build instruction sets. It said, you're a builder. I know you're a builder. So let me teach you this in a way that makes sense to you. So these are some of the really fun parts of using AI and LLMs is it can know how to best teach you if you tell it to teach you. Okay. So anyway, pricing logic and defaults. These are also finishing off the estimate. You would think that pricing is one of the foundational parts of building an estimate. It's not. The line items are, the templates are, the format is, the purpose is. The pricing is kind of just the cherry on top, the finishes. Okay, we have the scope of work. We have the number of windows and the type of windows. Now we just need to apply the pricing to those types of windows. So the pricing logic and defaults is going to be our instruction set to show it what prices to use when it's prompted with certain types of scope of work, certain materials, certain quantities, etc. And, you know, as I'm going through here, you can always see everything that's underlined, bolded, and italicized are different documents that's going to be referring to in our knowledge set. So clarifying questions protocol had a clarifying questions guide that is going to be referring to. Project types and estimate templates have different templates in a project type document that's going to be referring to. And remember, we even introduced that in the system components in section 1. Again, you know, clarifying questions guide, pricing guide, project types, etc. All of that is here. So we are making it very clear what documents this GPT needs to be focused on to make these final estimates. All right, I think I'm getting close on time, so I'm going to wrap it up. Pricing, logic, hierarchy, and conflict handling. This is, again, just finishing off the estimate. This is making sure the GPT knows what to prioritize when it's determining the pricing for each estimate. So explicit user input is always the most important. Then the estimator pricing guide starts coming into play. Then the template logic starts coming into play and defaults. So these are all more components of how to come up with the pricing. I don't want to bore you with it. I actually made a video before this where I really dove deep into it, but you guys get the picture of all these, and in the past 2 videos we talked about it some, so I'm not going to bore you and really go through all the detail. Unless you really want me to, put it in the comments, or come join the Rehabbers Playbook. We go more into detail on this when we're doing our whole training in August. Okay, last thing, estimate notes and revisions. This is, again, finishing off the estimate. Estimate notes are incredibly important. At the end of every estimate, you have clarifying questions and estimate notes. So think of it this way. When you've been given an estimate before in the past, or a budget, and you're like, you see a line item and you see a cost, and you're wondering how they came up with that cost from that line item and scope of work. The estimate notes part of these estimates are going to be the part that explains the assumptions, the defaults. You'll see assumptions, defaults. It'll explain any items that are volatile, like if framing is something that we're not 100% sure on. It'll talk about contingencies, pricing overrides, etc. So estimate notes are very important. And again, go back and watch some of our videos. You'll see all of this in action, especially video number 2. All right, I'm going to call it there. I feel like I'm running out of time. I don't want to bore you guys. I want to chunk this up properly. In the next video, we're actually going to be making the custom GPT together. And then in the last video, we're going to give it one final test run. I say the last video. I can see myself making a bunch more of this. But in, let's say, video number 5, we're going to be giving it an actual test run for what I would call version number 2. All right, hope that helped. Remember, the link is in the description for you to get the Estimator GPT instructions in Masterclass. And if you want access to our GPT, or if you want more detailed training on these GPTs, come join the Rehabbers Playbook. We're doing a whole training in August, and also everybody in the Rehabbers Playbook gets our GPT to use as part of the membership. Look in the video description. You can book a call with me. We can jump on a call, see if it's a good fit, and we can go from there. All right, until next time, keep building. I'll see you on the next video.